This video will immensely help the way you view pawns in chess, whether it be a pawn structure, whether it be a pawn break. Chess is a game where the winner of the game is the person who asks themselves the better question throughout, barring a mouse slip. So that's what we're going to discuss today. You might be like, what does this guy know about pawn structures? Well, I would argue I'm one of the only people in the world who got 2 flank pawns one away from promoting against someone who played in a World Chess Championship match. Kind of just a flex, but it is Nigel Short. And I was pretty hyped to get this game, not gonna lie. Queen versus queen draw. But the question of pawns, whether they be diagonally from each other on the king side, on the queen side, a square of pawns that always seems too hard to calculate, you need to know, should I take, should I take, should I leave alone? But what if they take? But what if they take the other way? All fascinating questions that we're gonna get to in middle games. Intro over, let's delve into the positions. There will be 5 of them, all different, all helpful in different ways. Pawn to d5, a mistake. So it's always good to get a gauge on the position. What is the imbalance here? Where we have a knight pair, they have a bishop pair. So it should be distasteful to want to take. You shouldn't be completely deterred from calculating it. But unless you see something very nice, you know that in principle, opening up the board is going to help the guy with the bishop pair. So then you're like, okay, I don't see anything great if I take. So should I leave it alone and just develop? Always look at the base of your pawn structure. Can it be targeted? Well, it can. It can be overwhelmed as well. So if you leave it alone, they're going to rip open the position, whether you like it or not. And their bishops are going to kind of wake up. So then you look at pushing. Okay, every move has a cost. Cost-benefit analysis. But pawn to e5, they can't claim f5 as a post because they don't have a knight that could go there, and we are well guarded. No stuttering today. Not today. So pawn to e5 blocks out the dark squared bishop, blocks out the light squared bishop. Very nice. Also creates a post. But then they hand you another test into the position right again. Pawn to d4. This is a tempo gainer as well as a clearance. They are clearing this diagonal for devious battery mates in the future, as well as clearing the d5 square for their queen. Do you want to take? Well, it is a closed position, and again, we already talked about this tangible target that will now be blockaded. So taking looks suspicious at the very least. Should we jump backwards or forwards with the knight? Well, d6 is the post, so route towards the post. Queen to d5. A little preemptive. A little too dubious. You block the queen in. We'll go just a few moves further. They take. You should take with the pawn. Right? Pawns next to each other cover the whole preceding rank. And that is very good against this knight. Yes, they can add pressure to d3. But now you're well versed for such a move. Lock the position up even more. And look at these bishops. Just from understanding the imbalance, you've made their bishop pair very bad. Now, okay, you push and you weaken d4, and that is the switch they have to save their queen. But it's kind of just too little too late. One move further we'll just talk about. Don't be one of those people who just aimlessly gains a tempo on the queen. Really box it out. Keep it boxed into your position, rather. And they're going to have a tough time getting out. Should be an easy win. Now, one more position similar, and then we'll go to positions that are clearly different. But I wanted to show you this, and this is why I pitch systematic chess openings. Because you will get similar pawn structures, but still very different and interesting games, right? We have a pawn on g5 here. But in the other one, we didn't. But I would argue from systematic play, you'll get so familiar with a pawn structure that you will start to begin to understand the essence of a pawn structure. And I believe from understanding the essence of one, you will understand the essence of many. Just wiring your brain. So even if you haven't seen a different structure before, you'll better know how to play it because you're calculating constantly and you're constantly improving, refining your train of thought in said given pawn structure. But again, pawn to d4, a clearance. They would maybe like to infiltrate, maybe with the knight, maybe with the queen, devious threats of a battery incoming. So what should we do? Well, you don't want to leave it alone, right? Because if you leave it alone, their rook is claiming the b file. Doesn't look fantastic, but you also don't want to take because again, kind of a similarity to the other puzzle. You're blockaded. They have a focal point that they will gear up on and attack for the rest of the game. It's a long-term liability. They have the bishop pair. We also have a bishop pair, but you still push locking up, keeping them from jumping into the position. So they can't jump in on the queen side, so they jump in on the king side. Now, the point of this move is they want you to take. So when someone offers up a trade, always ask yourself, why are they offering it up? And then you might see that the point is that they want to cut off e4. And if you recognize that, you'll claim e4 before they cut it off. A discovered defense. Is that terminology in chess? If not, we're making it. Now, many people might be like, oh, I'll remove this knight and claim d6. Well, you do want to remove the knight, but with this pawn on g5, f6 is the bread and butter of the position. You might be like, doesn't that double up your pawns? Well, it's a clearance, right? If g5, if there's nothing there, so knight f6 takes, it's such a closed position. Closed positions are about formation, rotation, etc. It's less ambiguous. So you have time to just route over and up and deliver a checkmate, and there's nothing they could do. Yeah, pawn puzzles are like when you go on a plane and you see people solving Sudoku. That's what pawn puzzles are to me. They're mini riddles, be it an end game, be it a middle game. Really sharpens the mind. You got to think it helps you in other aspects of life. But I digress. Knight to f6, we get king to h8. This is not a tactical video, so we'll just skim over the fact that you blow open the position and have forced mate on the board. We'll get back to that one. Okay. Bonus points if you know what opening this stemmed from. Of course, that'll always help you, but this is for people who don't religiously study openings because they don't have time or, life. There's a lot of responsibilities in life, so I understand. But people who don't touch grass all too often, like me, know that this stems probably from a semi-Slav. And in a semi-Slav, you know that they want to break with c5. It's a commonality. It's a common theme. Very thematic way of playing. But let's say you didn't know that. Well, chess is all about the questions you ask yourself about said position. What is black's worst place piece? Always a fantastic question for the unemployed. The bishop on b7, you should be able to see. And from understanding that that bishop is the worst place piece, you should understand that they're going to want to make it better, so c5 should be in the realm of possibilities of moves. How do you stop c5? The only move that comes to my mind is pawn to b4, stopping them from playing c5 face value. Assume they play the best move a5. Push, captures, or takes. Always a fantastic question for the unemployed. You don't want to take, right? Because the reason we put this pawn here was to clamp down on c5. But okay, they have two attackers. Not to mention, if we take, you can look at it briefly, but you double isolate your pawns. They're going to play c5. This doesn't look all too nice. Can't be correct. But they do have two attackers, so we got to add a defender. How would you defend? The correct answer is rook b1. You might be like, why not queen b3? Why not queen b3? Well, it gives up defense on the bishop and knight. This is why you can't just mindlessly defend. You really got to try to delve deeper, literally till the point of giving yourself a headache. Right? That's why when people solve puzzles and they go move by move by move, and then they're like, I solved this 3,000 rated puzzle. Well, if you solved it move by move, really, it's partially luck. You need to see it the whole way through. If you can't go move by move in chess. You got to give yourself a headache. It's better to see 3 moves ahead and get it wrong than to see 1 move ahead and get it right. That's what I have to say. But queen to b3 allows pawn to c5, kind of tactical. This pawn could not be left alone. And yeah, kind of tactical. The queen left the bishop. The white pawn structure is going to be messed up. Quite dubious. So rook to b1 should be played. This would be a fantastic position to play against a training partner or stockfish if you have no friends like me. So if you want to delve deeper into it, go do that. Now we got this one. What's a good principle in chess, right? Pawn play is like, is my opponent being confident or is he being cocky? This is a position where a5, they want to bulldoze you and you just say, oh, he's being cocky, he's full of shit. He's got nothing, not a zilch zippo. So a good principle in chess is when your opponent strikes on one end of the board, you should strike on the other. The reason they're pushing on one end of the board is to capture your attention. So don't give them the attention, go on the other way. Doubled pawns can be very good in closed positions. You might be like, there's no breaks. The king side's locked. Oftentimes in locked positions, it is the unplayable looking move that is the best of moves. The point is, if they take, you just checkmate them on the H file. If they take with the F pawn, well, if they don't take, you collapse them, and again, you checkmate them. So they have to take. It was a clearance sacrifice. We cleared F5, so we go F5. Again, they can't take because they get mated. So they could sacrifice a piece here, but they didn't. And now from good positional chess, stem tactics, boom, you win the game. You win the game on the H file. And if they don't take that, I mean, look at this. Who's holding this pawn structure? Nobody. So you should try to beat this against stock. Now the last one, right? They just tried to be devious on the flank. So you meet a flank pawn push with a flank pawn push, another good chess principle. But thank you for the comment. The reason I'm making this video is purely from a comment I got. And we can make this a series if you guys like this type of video, because I love everything regarding pawn endgames. I was actually going to make a video on the youngest person ever to beat a GM in a classical game. He was a fellow Serb. But then I realized it was some months back, and a month later, the record was broken. Nowadays, you got fetuses beating GMs. It's really just, it's something else. It's quite spectacular and also kind of gross in the chess world that 8-year-olds can beat grandmasters in classical chess. And that's amazing. Crazy. The age of AI. But yeah, I was going to make that video, and then I was just thinking, this is how my brain works. I was thinking about that video, and then I was like, huh. So, you know, it's fascinating because women are very ethnocentric, right? I think of women as ethnocentric. They love their culture. They can get along with other cultures and be like, oh, this is nice from my culture. I like this. I like that. Oh, that's very cute. That's very nice. Men, on the other hand, they're like, brat, neighboring countries. My country is better than yours. And they're like, no, I'm better than you. No, I'm better than you. And then they just run into a wall and saying, I'm better than you. And it's just awesome, right? It's the life of a dude. And kind of just fantastic. I don't know what it is, but no complaints. But yeah, something I thought about. Quite fascinating. So king's best piece in the endgame. And I just wanted to show you this. Because look at this pawn structure. Why push at 1? Well, the person who runs out of pawn moves first will typically ends up losing that game. So you want to be as slow as possible. Leave as many springs in the position as possible. Now, I'm not happy that I went for a threefold repetition here. But, you know, you got to cut your losses. You got to know that if you push in a drawn position, you could tell this is balanced. It just looks balanced. You could tell that you could end up easily losing that type of position. And for my calculations, okay, c5, very bad move, creates a hole. a5, like, why would I want to do that? Gives them the file, even though it's okay. And then, you know, in endgames, a 3-on-3, the way to collapse it is to push the central pawn. But it's not a pure endgame, and after take, they have the rook move, they have the tempo gain, so I'm like, I'm down on the clock, how am I going to win that? So a repetition was just made. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. More to come if you would like. Comment down other suggestions you'd like to see. Thank you as always for watching. Have a great day. Peace.